Let's go!
Thank God it's Friday!
Drop it. Welcome, one and all, to the Friday Power Panel with me, Johnny Rolla, and very lucky to be doing yet another show this week with Jordan Ewell. Jordan, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great, John. What a week.
It's certainly been a week, and joining us to cap off the week, Mark Thompson's back. Mark, how's it going?
Yeah, great to be with J&J. I love it. Yeah, I have your vaccine. It's done wonders for me. Yeah, thank you.
Get it while you still can. Right. But anyway, yeah. So I think it's probably about time that we end this week of news. I think that's enough of stuff happening.
It's been a terrible
brutal week. Yeah, it's been bad, and it's likely to get worse because we are governed by monsters. But there is little dribs and drabs of some good news and little ideas of what might be coming in the near future. So we're going to be talking about that throughout this hour. And so I'm very lucky to have my panel. The second hour, Yaz is going to be leading that, which is very exciting. And Maz Jabrani, as well as Michael Shore, will be joining Yaz. And Yaz is going to be in studio. Which is very exciting because she's never done a show in studio before. So lots to look forward to. And with all that said, why don't we jump into our first story?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI.
That right there is the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, announcing the good news that they think this time, third time's a charm, they actually got the guy responsible for the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk earlier this week. It's a 22-year-old who's been identified as Tyler Robinson. You can see a photo of him right there. Obviously, some photos had been circulating online for the last day or so. It took quite a while after the attack for those to start to come out, but we'll get into criticisms of the investigation soon. For now, we want to talk a little bit about what is known about the suspect. And as was alluded to there by the governor, it was a family member of the shooter who reached out to a family friend who had contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And so eventually information, was relayed and they were able to link up. Investigators not only talked to the members of the family, but also to Robinson's roommate, who showed the messages on Discord between him and Robinson, which was further corroborating evidence in their view that he had been the one who did it. Those messages associated with the name Tyler state, quote, a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, engraving bullets, having left the rifle wrapped in a towel, and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Now, I had seen earlier today, Discord is stating that nothing was done to plan the attack on their platform. The investigators are saying that those messages are unique, so we'll see how that develops. But for now, we know as of yesterday that law enforcement had recovered a rifle. I believe that was discussed yesterday on the show. It was a high-powered bolt-action rifle, and it was indeed wrapped in a towel. So that's, again, yet another link that this could be the actual person. And then as everybody continues to try to figure out what the motivation of this tragic and horrific act was, there were as was alluded to in the messages, engravings on the actual casing. So here we're going to discuss the engravings that appear to actually have been there. Earlier this week, there was initial reporting that turned out to not be the case. Initially, it was Steven Crowder that spread this, that made people falsely believe that this had something to do with either the shooter being trans or in support of the trans movement. And it was like almost unbelievably boneheaded how they came to that conclusion, but we'll discuss that. First, let's talk about what was actually on the casing. So there was a phrase, "Hey fascist, catch," followed by an up arrow symbol, a right arrow symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. There was the phrase, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao," as well as, "If you read this, you're gay, LMAO." Now, there was also one more, "Notices bulge, OWO, what's this?" And basically, what's this? This is a variety of phrases that are part of different meme cultures on the internet, and basically the sorts of stuff that you'd be knowledgeable of if you were a gamer on the one hand or way too online on the other. I was familiar with one of them, and we'll get to that in a sec. That would be, of course, "Hey fascist, catch," which initially people pointed to as evidence of the ideological bent of the shooter. That it seems like, well, if he's writing that on a bullet, then he seems to be indicating he thinks Charlie Kirk is a fascist. Now, many people have identified both that phrase as well as the arrows as being references to components of the game Helldivers 2, which I'm familiar with. The arrows are basically a code that is put in on the controller or keypad that brings in a bomb. And the phrase, I'm not familiar with that from the game, but people are saying it is a part of the game. Now, we also should bear in mind the possibility that it is a reference to the game and it's an expression of ideology. That could certainly be true as well. Now, the game itself is a sort of satirical play on a fascist state, sort of scrubbing out democracy around the galaxy. But again, these sorts of memes and like trolling doesn't always have to make logical sense necessarily. So we can't say for sure exactly what it means. But that said, let's turn now to a little bit of video. We'll get in discussion in a sec. First, here's a family member. There is a family member who talked to investigators about some of the radicalization of the shooter.
Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate.
So we'll get into in a minute a little bit more of the more breaking evidence, possibly pointing to an ideology or a motive. But I want to jump to our panel. Mark, first, I haven't talked to you yet about this story. What do you make about the fact that they caught him and what's been revealed so far?
Well, first of all, they didn't really catch him. They picked up the telephone when they were contacted by family members, and I mean that's an important distinction because there's so much peacocking going on. We got him. And the narratives that were slapped onto this situation, first from the President of the United States and then onto this situation from every sort of right-wing pundit and Fox News channel, any kind of right-wing propaganda instrument was all too anxious to sort of use the vacuum between the incident and then actually apprehending the suspect to slap on, as I say, whatever narrative they wanted. So that's why when you talk about those various etchings that were there, and those that even weren't there that I know you'll get to, you begin to see how this is all just being used for political purposes, which is again to be expected, but it's sort of toward a loathsome end. But anyway, back to Kash Patel and the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Quite literally, Kash Patel is one of these guys who is all too ready to take the microphone. He's gotten rid of everybody at the FBI with any competence at the highest levels, and he's essentially replaced them with a bunch of loyalists. And so there were a bunch of mistakes made up until the point where they could announce that they had this shooter in custody. Those mistakes included proclaiming that they had him in custody already, then he had to walk it back, and there were a number of different things from an administrative standpoint that Kash Patel had screwed up. And then finally, and we'll kind of get to this a little bit later, John, but the fact that he had to sort of yield completely to allow Trump to go on television and announce that they had the shooter in custody. All of these things sort of speak to the theatrics of this, almost a performative aspect to this. But what we're seeing, I think, is some revelations that don't match the existing narrative that they tried to slap onto this situation prior to what we're learning now.
Yeah. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, a few things, right? You pointed out some of these writings on the shell casings. That's a pattern that we're seeing with a lot of younger, more nihilistic shooters. And for me, that underscores not a political ideology or this nihilism leading to shootings, but another reminder that we are passing off this problem of gun violence to another generation. It manifests differently than prior generations, but still nothing is being done about it. We've talked about this repeatedly. It is a uniquely American problem. And I think, yes, I see a lot of people on both sides of the political spectrum trying to find bits and pieces that affirm their worldview and demonize the other. And they're trying to make this shooter into someone part of a different political camp. And again, we talked about it on Damage Report yesterday. I can't stress enough, the problem, the underlying theme in all of these shootings is the proliferation of guns in this country. You've seen people say, oh, he was an adherent to a certain right-wing political figure and podcaster. You're seeing an interview in The Guardian with a purported high school classmate saying he was firmly on the left. We don't know, but to me, none of this really matters. The problem here throughout all of these stories, but this one again, is guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And maybe we'll have more details soon. We don't know for sure, but you're right. It seems based on what we've seen, he had access to guns if he wanted them. I mean, he was of age. He could have theoretically, like this sort of gun, generally, I don't know what gun control would have banned this sort of hunting rifle. This is not, it's not a classic like assault style weapon or anything like that. But he knew guns. He grew up around guns. Guns are part of the culture. And so when he turned violent, that's the direction that he lashed out in. Maybe there is more of an ideological component. We'll see. But I do think that nihilism certainly seems to be a part of it. And I would also think it's noteworthy, and we're not going to go into great detail on this. I believe they're going to be talking about it in the second hour of the show. But we're now finding out that the person who on that same day committed a mass shooting at a school appears to have been more traditionally radicalized online by white supremacist, anti-Semitic, right-wing organizations. Now, we can't talk about that because that would distract from Donald Trump's quest to make all of this seem like it's left-wing political violence, but that also happened the same day. And so to your point, the guns do seem fundamentally to be a big part of the problem. Now,
well, and to the point also, John, it bears mentioning. I know that it's been said over and over, but I think there's a reason it's been said over and over. I mean, the tragic irony of Kirk being this champion for gun rights and then falling victim to gun violence. I mean, it can't be ignored, and it really can't be overstated. This is America. I mean, America fetishizes guns, and guns are everywhere. You can't have that kind of proliferation, whether it's a nihilism or a radicalized white supremacy in that environment, without there being some pretty nasty things as a result.
Yeah. Well, in terms of like hard evidence of what his background might be, and bear in mind, we're interested in this because it's a horrific act. This is sort of the part of the process of coming to understand a story. I understand there are some people that don't care at all about any of this. They're not interested in what the background was or what we could find out about this person. And I totally understand that, but I'm a curious person and I want to know. He was apparently registered as a voter, but not affiliated with any party in a way that we could see. There had been like initial reporting. People thought they had tracked down donations he had made to Donald Trump or to MAGA. That turned out not to have been the case. Always take with a massive grain of salt any information like that comes out in the immediate aftermath of a shooting, particularly when it's based on nothing other than the person's name. There are a lot of people, particularly with the name Tyler and Robinson. You cannot assume that simply because that name is in a donation that it's going to turn out to be that particular person. We know that he apparently never attended Utah Valley University, but he did go to Utah State University for one semester and was in some sort of electrical apprenticeship. He's being held right now without bail in a Utah jail. Is expected to be charged with aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, and obstruction of justice. And as of right now, the investigators are saying that he is refusing to talk to them. I don't know generally how that ends up going in these cases. It seems like a person that liked to express, based on what the family has said, liked to express his political opinions. Maybe he'll end up talking and giving more information. We don't know. But that said, I want to talk a little bit more about something that Mark had raised just a few minutes ago, and that would be the role of Kash Patel in this investigation. So let's jump to this. Despite taking 33 hours to apprehend the suspect in the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk and falsely claiming that they had the right guy in custody the very first night of the shooting, FBI Director Kash Patel was really quick to rush out and brag about how quickly he and his team had worked during the press conference that happened earlier today. Take a look.
The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great, and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI.
I don't know what that strange little man is saying. Yeah, they answered the call. The call was from the family member of the shooter, because if not for that, there would be nothing. We would still be looking for him. And by the way, I'm not gonna be critical of the investigators or the agents or the cops that were working with them. They're scrubbing the internet. They're out there, they're searching, they're investigating people. They're doing all that stuff that Kash Patel is not doing any of, by the way. Kash Patel is just sitting stewing after having made one boneheaded blunder after the other, and feeling the pressure, by the way, because more and more people in the MAGA world were mad at him. It's all well and good for loyalists and toadies with no experience to be put into these incredibly important and sensitive positions in government when you don't care if the government functions. But as soon as you desperately want it to function because one of your own was struck down, suddenly it's like, oh wait, why do we have an idiot in one of these positions? And unfortunately, he's the idiot. So when he comes out and says, we got him, okay, I'll say the same thing. We got him. And I can say that because I had as much to do with it as Kash Patel did. Neither of us were essential. Both of us could have taken a vacation and it would have been the exact same outcome. And so anyway, for him to come out and pretend that his leadership was a part of this, the only way it couldn't have been, like, if what would he have told people not to answer the phone? I guess that would have been bad leadership. Other than that, I don't think he was that important in this particular story. But anyway, before we get into the discussion, I want to give some evidence, some examples of that pressure that I referenced he was experiencing. Here is Steve Bannon and some other conservatives.
So many unanswered questions, and I do not understand why law enforcement did not step up to the microphone and give some details. Instead of glazing each other about this partnership and we're all great, we did a great job. Correct me if I'm wrong. It appears the kid had said something to the family had just confronted him, and the family turned him in. I'm not seeing the great law enforcement work, and I'm not, saying there's not great law enforcement. They all came together. I got that, but this was not through law enforcement work. I don't know why Kash flew out there, thousands of miles to give us, hey, working partnerships and our great partnership in Utah. Okay, I got that. No offense to the law enforcement guys in the future of this. The public assumes that you're working together as partnerships.
Exactly. Now, Kash may not know that because, again, he doesn't know what he's doing and he's not qualified for the position. So all of this might be another blessed discovery every day that he wakes up. But anyway, look, this is what you get when you put a guy like him who's only in that position because he's a loyalist. He wrote a fawning picture book about Donald Trump, and his main assistant is a bloviating podcaster. And I understand, they could have done a lot in this investigation. They're certainly not distracted by finding justice with the Epstein files or anything like that. They had the time on their hands. But anyway, I think if anything coming out of this, he should be fired, replaced by somebody who actually knows what they're doing. But Jordan, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Kash Patel has no business running the FBI. It's an absolute joke. And I was laughing, just the mental image of Patel and Dan Bongino flying out to Utah to do or lead the investigation. Like, what would they be doing? Just podcasting from the forest? This is another problem. We're seeing this throughout the government. This is what it looks like when you fill these positions with lackeys and loyalists instead of somebody who has expertise in that field. This person was free to roam for an additional day because they wrongfully detained 2 other people, and granted it was a chaotic situation, but still, like Mark pointed out, like many people have pointed out, the only reason they have him is because somebody turned him in. The press conference last night was not very reassuring. They said they had no leads and they were begging the public for help. The FBI didn't solve this crime. That's it. The public did, and it was somebody who seemed like they wanted the reward, who already knew him.
Mark, any other thoughts? I know you talked a little bit about this earlier, but
yeah, but this crew really can't wait to take a victory lap, and that's kind of why Bongino and Patel go out there and they sort of just to try to, in some way, take credit for an investigation they had nothing to do with. We said, I mean, it was like working the phones at a telethon. I mean, you essentially sit there, you take leads from the public, and the one that seems as though it's connected, and this one was, served up cleanly. It wasn't it wasn't like solving the case in New York where the CEO is shot on the street and you have to put together a jigsaw puzzle of little bits and fragments of information. This was a situation in which the family reached out. Bannon was right, and Bannon says some loathsome things later on in that same run. But he's absolutely right about the fact that essentially Bongino and Patel, they go out there and they're just there to sort of be part of the winner's circle. It is what's happening across government, and it stands as a stark example of what these toadies do as they sit there completely vapid and unable to really do any kind of police work, and they simply take credit and celebrate, if you will, something that they had nothing to do with.
Exactly, and I can only imagine. And I can't speak for any of them, but so many of those actual agents, the ones who haven't been fired for being the wrong race or whatever, how insulting must it be to see these losers standing up there and taking credit for this when you're the ones doing the actual work? It's like, how the diplomats must feel when they see Donald Trump talking about how he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a very weird administration. It's 80% people who have no business being in their position, the Kristi Noems and the Pete Hegseth and all that. And then you have the 20% who theoretically do know what they're doing, but have to pretend that they don't. Like Besant and Lutnick understand the economy, but they all have to now pretend that they don't know how tariffs work because Donald Trump is a moron. It's a very weird way to run a government.
But the one thing they do, John, is they all sing from the same hymnal, and you saw it in that press conference that we just saw a bit of from Patel, and that is they lavish praise on the supreme leader, on Donald Trump. It's remarkable to see, but that's the one thing Patel can do. He can do it 24 hours a day, is find new ways to compliment Donald Trump on his squiring of this investigation, on his appointment of great law enforcement people. It's all about lavishing praise on the supreme leader.
Yeah. Jordan, any final thought before we break?
It can't be stated enough. Patel has to be fired, and I think it should be as soon as possible. I mean, thankfully, this was a contained situation. There's only one person who lost their life. But think about if it was a mass shooting and somebody was on the loose. Think about someone who escapes and goes to a different town. You need to think about the long-term consequences of keeping him in this position. I don't expect Trump will, because like Mark just laid out, he's doing the most valuable thing you can do to keep that job, which is just praise Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, he should be fired. Take Dan Bongino with him. Let him spend more time with the podcast he loves so much. Imagine if this guy had been like the Minnesota guy and it had a list of 60 people that he wanted to take out. Thank God he appeared to only wanted to take out one person. The days that they gave him to run amok if he wanted to could have proved deadly, but thank God it didn't happen. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, lots more. Welcome back. I was actually thinking coming out of that last conversation, Cenk should do like for a special, a bracket of the most incompetent member of the Trump administration. Like who is like least well placed for their position, and there's a lot of them.
That's a great idea.
Patel might be kind of up there. I don't know. Anyway, let's read some comments. First of all, the members' comments. Eclectic Miscellanea, hey, how's it going? Says, John, didn't you get the memo about wearing a hat? But fortunately, Mark, as you covered, there's an extra one in the back of his shot. There is.
That's right. Wear a Mark Thompson show hat. Yeah, I can get you into one for very little.
Exactly. Everyone go check out the Mark Thompson show. By the way, if I'd known, I actually went. So Jordan and Brett got me into golf. I actually bought a hat for. I'm not really a hat guy, but I bought a hat for golf. I should have worn it. Oh well. Anyway, Art Guy says we got him is a funny way of saying the killer's family made him surrender to us. Yeah, 100%. Huang Jun says, Helldivers is obviously satire. That's like joining the police force after watching The Naked Gun. Yeah, no, I understand that. And that's why I don't think that the engraving being on the shell necessarily means that he agrees with it. I also, and I understand this is not popular to say, my assumption is that the thing that seems most common sense will end up being the truth, which is Kirk was a right winger. It makes the most sense that it would be a person on the other side. It's not the only thing that makes sense. There are other factions of the right, and there has been right on right political violence just in the last year. So I'm just saying we don't know for sure. I'm just analyzing the evidence as it comes in. Let's see. Sek says, do you really think they care? He will always be trans in their minds. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that if the person had actually been like identified as trans, I think that, I mean, I don't even know what laws would have been passed today. Okay, Guam will capsize dragon says, still want to know how many death threats the released guys got. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people can be really irresponsible. And even after the suspect was identified, there were still crazy conspiracy theories flowing around on Twitter. Okay, let's see. Over on the YouTube comments, Secondhand Citizen says, what up TYT fam? Saw Cenk on TMZ earlier. He nailed it. That's awesome. I didn't know that he was doing TMZ. I actually don't know. He's on like a work trip, I assume, like doing shows and everything?
He did it from home.
Oh, okay. He needs PTO. It's a rough week for everybody. Edwin Baez says, happy Friday, TYT Familia. Haven't been able to watch live the last few days, but I'm in the building. To the squad, thank you for being here. J-Bomb Dragon says, I still can't believe we're talking about Charlie in the past. Yes, it is. It is still a very shocking thing. And so much gets normalized in America, but it's the last thing. Jordan says, was I the only one who watched? Wow, fake friends. I'm not watching TV in the middle of the day. I'm at work. I'm not watching TMZ. Also, I've literally never watched TMZ. So.
I saw it on X.com, John, the everything app.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I am trying to exercise positive mental health, which is why I almost never go on those social media sites and haven't for about 2 years. But anyway. LL Taco Dragon says 2 shows with Jordan and John in a week span. How blessed are we? Well, that might be the only way that America's blessed this week, considering everything that's been going on. But more news coming up after this. I now know the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. I'm going to resist the urge to use my newfound jock sports knowledge to demonstrate how much I know of what's going on in the sports world, because I'm worried that Bart would clip that out and then use it on me for the next 10 years. So instead, why don't we move into our next story?
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem.
That is Donald Trump doing something that I guess isn't going to surprise anyone. There's a moment Will he meet it? Obviously, he's not going to. When America needs a responsible figure, someone who cares about everyone in America. Again, you're not elected by the people who voted for you, which I'll remind you for Donald Trump is less than 50% of the people who voted. You're supposed to be the president of everyone. And we have a country that is scared, and not just Republicans are scared. Many Democrats are scared as well. And Donald Trump decided I could do the thing that literally every other president in American history would do, which is just try to take down the tenor of the conversation. I keep telling people not to demonize people. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna demonize people. And I'm going to erase all of the right-wing political violence, which is still the vast, vast, vast majority of all of it. I'm gonna erase the right-wing political violence that happened on the exact same day that Charlie Kirk was shot. And I'm gonna pretend that it's a problem of the left so that I can get something out of it. He's gonna use callously and cruelly, viciously use the death of a person he claims to be a friend to get something politically. It's absolutely sickening. And then it gets even weirder, I guess, as he goes on. He just starts rambling about all of his political grievances. Take a look.
They're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone, they want open borders. The worst thing that happened to this country, because I've already solved inflation, costs are down. Look at energy costs. You're gonna have $2 gasoline pretty soon. I've solved just about every problem. The worst thing that happened to our country is when we let 25 million people in, many of which, and I say 80%, should not be in our country. They emptied their prisons into our country. They emptied their mental institutions, insane asylums. They threw them all into our country. And these stupid people, and some of them are stupid in terms of common sense, but they're brilliant in other ways. Biden wasn't calling the shots. It was the geniuses that surrounded, radical left geniuses that surrounded him on the, unfortunately, he used the Resolute desk. That's the one I used. I hated that he used it, but he used it. But they called the shots, and he didn't do anything. Look at what happened. The auto pen signed everything. He wasn't aware of anything that was being signed.
I don't often feel an abundance of empathy for the hosts of Fox and Friends, but I can only imagine how utterly bored they are as Grandpa rambles on. Come on, get to the point. So anyway, a lot of that was either nonsense. The idea that we'll soon have $2 gas when he's been going around for 6 months saying that it's less than $2 already. We have no inflation, even though we do. Costs are down, even though they're up. I don't know if it's just him lying, which would be bad enough for a guy whose reputation is that he tells it straight to the voters, that he spits in their face by lying about all the problems that they still face, or if the likelihood that he's been experiencing a series of micro strokes have resulted in him not knowing what year it is. Maybe he thinks that gas is $2 a gallon because he thinks it's 1994. I don't know. But anyway, he went on from trying to point his rabid gun-toting followers at the left to then ranting about trans people and all of that. It's absolutely sickening. Again, as far as possible from meeting the moment. Mark, I'm gonna go to you first. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's just, this is the as you suggested, sort of this ramble, but what's in the ramble is the propaganda machine, which is always going with Trump. And it's the kind of thing that you see in Maduro does it, Putin does it, Orban does it. I mean, you know, the facts have nothing to do with what the leader is saying. And the idea somehow that he could pivot off of the question that was really a sitter, which is, you know, they're radicals on the right, they're radicals on the left. I mean, how are we going to bring this country together? You could have gone so many different ways. And instead, he just said, no, they're radicals on the left and they are crazy, lunatic libs who are destroying this country. And then he begins this screed. And as you suggest, all these digressions. And as I say, they just seem to me to be the sort of digressions that are associated with both kind of the fact that he's untethered by reality and also that he just has to keep pumping the propaganda machine, which he does almost nonstop.
Jordan?
Yeah, the line that we're seeing from many people on the right is that political violence is only a one-way problem. And of course, you know, Trump, you and I talked about on Damage Report yesterday, John, how they were talking about the dangers of dehumanizing rhetoric. I mean, who more and who of greater prominence than Trump has used dehumanizing rhetoric to inspire and incite violence over the last several years in our politics? It's just an absolute mockery. But one thing I can't really shake is while Trump is doing this Fox interview, and I know we might get into the Yankees game last night and his dancing in the crowd and all that. JD Vance is the one flying with Charlie Kirk's widow and the casket. And then this morning at the White House, Trump is asked about his friend, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm okay. Hey, have you checked out this new patio furniture?"
It was insane.
It just does not care at all. It's remarkable.
Jordan, that I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that video is like psychotic. It would like, you may think, oh, Jordan, surely he's exaggerating. He must have said more. No, it was, I'm doing fine. Hey, by the way, look at these bulldozers. We're gonna have a fabulous, everybody's wanted a big ballroom. We're gonna have a big ballroom. He knew Charlie Kirk for years. Charlie Kirk is a close personal friend of Don Jr. And I know that Trump doesn't necessarily like his sons, but he seemed to like Charlie Kirk. And then, and by the way, people mourn in weird ways. But when he was at the Yankees game, they're filming him doing his little weird dance and everything. This dude does not seem to care at all what happened. And I understand some MAGA people will get mad at us for like pointing that out or whatever. He seems to care significantly less than a lot of Democrats do about this tragic killing. And but anyway, look, my fear is that Donald Trump is obvious. He's always looked for opportunities to consolidate executive power, to crack down on his political opponents. He has whatever, you hear a lot about free speech and free association, everybody's rights you've heard about this week. Donald Trump doesn't care about literally any of that. Many of his followers do not. So I am very worried that he is going to use this as an opportunity to crack down on those that he disagrees with. We're already largely seeing it. There's media companies that are like firing people, probably because they're worried that the federal government will come after them if they don't. And his willingness to once again give the green light implicitly to his followers who are flooding the internet with like enraged videos about how they want to go to war with liberals, and Donald Trump is giving them the go ahead to do that. And so for every right winger that's like, these libs are being so callous, talk to your man, because he's the one that's inspiring it. In any event, well, actually, why don't we briefly play the final video, the video that Jordan had referenced with the Yankees.
Aaron Judge, he is some player, but he is some strong guy. He had the biggest forearms. I've seen weightlifters. I've never seen arms this big, and he's a fantastic person too.
Yeah, look, I understand. Maybe it's been 2 days. Maybe that's enough for Donald Trump to have more. But like, he just went off on vicious leftists and political violence, and then he's like, screw that stuff. Let's talk about this guy's forearms. They're jacked. This is not a serious person. This is not you cannot count on him to be responsible, to be human, to be adult, never to be a man. He just cannot be any of those things that you would expect a guy in this position to be.
But Jordan, he did lose the plot there, John. You're so right, so quickly. I mean, he's there expressly to talk about the capture of Charlie Kirk's murderer. You're at least supposed to feign a kind of grieving that you would think Trump could do. But as you say, maybe the expiration date on that is less than 48 hours, and then he's on to talking about something that you would speak about on an ESPN panel. I mean, it's the inappropriateness of it is striking, and because after all, he's a performer, and he couldn't even stick this landing. It's really disturbing given the gravity of the situation.
Jordan, final thoughts?
I want to point out one thing on Wednesday, after Charlie had been shot. There was, of course, a lot of speculation. Will he make it? What condition is he in? And there was one report from the speaker in the Utah State Legislature that was circulated a little bit, but it wasn't until Trump himself announced it. And I think that was a coordinated effort on the right, because that's the role he wanted to play in that moment. He wanted to break the news, and then all of the legacy media outlets ran with it on his confirmation. And I think for him, it's not really about their friendship, the contributions to the Republican Party and the MAGA movement that Charlie has led and fed into over the years. It's because, yet again, this is all about Trump. And I was trying to think, like, when I watched that Yankees footage last night, I thought about, like, I've unfortunately lost friends, as I'm sure many people watching this have. the devastation that you feel in the immediate moment and for the ensuing days. To go to a baseball game like a day later, granted it's 9/11 in New York, but still, like, to do your dance and then talk about that and point to the renovations at the White House. The guy is incapable of feeling any sort of empathy or putting himself in someone else's position. And this is weirdly like the most grotesque display of it.
Yeah, Waz was on the Damage Report this morning, and he pointed out, like, as terrible as like George W. Bush was after 9/11, he did some speeches where he seemed to care, and he was like trying to make people feel better. I mean, then he went on to invade a bunch of countries and kill hundreds of thousands of people, and he was terrible and mismanaged Katrina, and he was a terrible president. But he could at least be counted on to do that. Obviously, Obama always could be counted on to show the gravitas necessary. Also did some terrible things, but he could do that. Biden, for all my disagreements with Biden, could do that. Trump can't do it. And many of his base seem unable to even see what's lacking there. So anyway, just like I think about the video that like Bernie put out last night, like showcasing infinitely more capacity and understanding and compassion than Donald Trump is capable at this point. Okay, I think we're gonna take our second break. We come back, let's talk about where the next phase of Donald Trump's invasion of America will turn.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Hello.
Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there. Starting with some super chats, Julius Gill sent a very generous super chat to say, I find it ironic that this happened during a time when the left and right were uniting together to demand accountability regarding the Epstein files. Now we're back to square one. We're divided once again, and our government is evading accountability. I find it ironic in a purely cosmic sense. I know some people believe that this was done to be a distraction. I can't get there mentally. That's just not a thing that I'm capable of. I also don't think that we're back at square one. It is totally reasonable that a story like this will take over the rest of the week of the news cycle. But I mean, life will have to continue. Those documents need to be released. There needs to be justice. And so hopefully Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, the others, Marjorie Greene, weirdly enough, are still pushing for that and working on it. And next week we can continue that. I have no doubt that Donald Trump has consciously thought maybe this is the thing that gets them off my back or whatever. Well, let's prove him wrong. Okay, Pakistani American, and then it cuts off, but it said a super chat. America feels like a pot on high heat, lid sealed tight by both parties, pressure rising. One incident like Charlie Kirk's shocks Western world, but thousands of orphaned children in Palestine, their suffering is met with silence. How long before the pot overflows? Real leadership means turning down the heat and addressing the pain we're all ignoring. This is snapping moment. I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, Donald Trump is never gonna come within a country mile of anything that you're just describing there. He's never gonna do it. He doesn't care about the kids that have died in Palestine. I mean, on Wednesday, like between 70 and 100 Palestinians were killed. Just that day. There's been many more since then, obviously. And look, there are reasons, as I've talked about on TDR, when you feel like you know a person because they've been on TV, it's a slightly different thing. The fact that it was captured on video, I think makes it a much more immediate and crazy thing for people. But yeah, I mean, there was a school shooting that same day, and the right expressed, understandably, a lot of rage and frustration and anger and sadness over the death of Charlie Kirk, and all that's understandable. But it's also collectively more than they've ever produced for all of the kids that have been lost in school shootings, going back decades. They've never cared anything like this. Thoughts and prayers tweet. Now we're done. We're going back on about our lives. Anyway, okay, we have 35 seconds. Let's see. Chris, member for 16 months, thank you, says, I think the reason for rising political violence is caused by the decline of representation of the people, increasing wealth/class inequality, profit-seeking algorithms, and lack of decent gun laws. I certainly think that most, if not all of those, are contributing factors. Okay, LL Taco Dragon says, we need a Trump off between John and Jackson White, a full 15 to 30 minutes, 5 to 7 rounds of phrases and Trumpisms. That is way too much, and also Jackson would definitely win. We'll be right back. Welcome back to what remains the first hour of the Young Turks, everyone. We got a couple more stories to talk about, so let's jump into it. President Trump announced earlier today that he's planning to send federal law enforcement and the National Guard into Memphis, Tennessee, to, in his words, lower crime, i.e. do mulch and clean up garbage, I guess, like he did in Washington, D.C. Now, when is it gonna happen? We don't know, because he probably doesn't know, but he said, we're going into Memphis. Memphis is deeply troubled. I'm just announcing that now, and we'll straighten that out. National Guard and anybody else we need. And by the way, we'll bring in the military too, if we need it. Now, bear in mind, a court recently said that his previous deployment of National Guard here in LA was unlawful, but even that ruling doesn't say that he can't do it elsewhere. So although there's no judge that apparently is gonna stop him deploying not only the National Guard, but the military against his own people, I just wanna remind everyone, because of how insidious the normalization of things is, this is insane. It was insane when he did it in LA. It's insane that he did it in DC. And there's a natural urge that like, oh, well now it'll be Memphis and maybe it'll be New Orleans and then it'll be Chicago. And that's just a thing that happens. No, it is a thing that has only happened very recently with this one insane man. No one else has done this. No one has gone against the will of mayors and governors and dispatched the US military against their own citizens. It is still insane today, the same way it was when he started this a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, to try to make this, I guess, sound more reasonable, he said, the mayor is happy, he's a Democrat, and the governor of Tennessee, the governor is happy. We're gonna like fix that just like we did Washington. Well, the mayor has come out with a statement since then saying that that is an exaggeration of what he said about them going in there. The mayor, Paul Young, had said that he'd been talking with the Trump administration about bringing in federal support for the police department, like financial resources, patrol officers, not battle tanks and APCs. But of course, like any sort of, like it's a Democrat, Trump doesn't care. He's gonna do whatever he wants. And so with that said, this could happen over the weekend. It could happen next week. Mark, what do you think?
Well, it's a flex on his part that he likes. It doesn't have anything to do with crime. As was alluded to, if he really was serious about crime, you'd buttress existing police forces with money, with federal guidance, with additional hiring incentives. All of these things could be done and supercharged even from the federal government. It's not about crime. It's about my ability as president to put troops on the streets. And it's performative. These are National Guard troops that are now used as props. It's expensive, by the way. And these are men and women who have dedicated portions of their lives to their availability to go where they're called to be. But they're accountants and real estate agents and teachers, and they have real lives. So there's a cost to the federal government, a cost to you and me as taxpayers to have this happen. But this is all just part of a flex. But there may be an end game associated as well with the fact that what you were saying, John, which is sort of this normalization, which is crazy, but it really may be true, may be very much relevant to the coming election, where you say, we've heard of threats on polling places, I'm going to put troops there to protect voters, et cetera, and the mere presence of troops chills out voter turnout, and you begin to assert yourself in a way that could actually affect an election outcome.
Yeah, I think that to me is that's the end game of this. That's the whole point of this, is to make it the most normal thing in the world when Atlanta and Houston and Austin and Detroit and Philly are just flooded with troops to drive down turnout. Sorry, Jordan, what do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, you and I talked about that a couple weeks ago on my show. It's just really horrifying to think about the long-term consequences of this normalization. But for me, it's also about cost. I mean, we just went through this massive budget process where they told us they had to cut all of these vital programs like SNAP and Medicaid to rein in waste, fraud, and abuse. And you're seeing 4 times potentially the amount of money spent per day in some of these cities than it would cost to house every homeless person per day in that city. They don't really care about the most vulnerable. They're just trying to create a national federalized police state, make people pay for it, and they're twisting the arms of elected officials into making them say thank you, and they welcome it and they're excited. The comments from the governor of Tennessee and the mayor of Memphis are supportive of this effort, despite, like you pointed out, John, crime is low right now in Memphis. This isn't about crime. And the more we have a militarized presence in cities across the country, the greater the likelihood we will see more and more tragedies like we saw today out of Chicago. ICE was conducting traffic stops. Not sure what power gives ICE to conduct traffic stops, but they were, and somebody was shot and killed by ICE. So that's just one incident. It's tragic, but the more widespread these occupations are, the greater the likelihood we will see repeat occurrences.
Yeah, I hadn't been familiar with that, so thank you for telling us. That's terrible, but and yeah, I mean, look, Memphis does still have a high rate of crime for U.S. cities. You know where this is going. Graphic 6. Overall crime, according to the Memphis Police Department, is at a 25-year low. Robbery, burglary, and larceny also reaching 25-year lows. Murders at a 6-year low. Aggravated assault a 5-year low. Sexual assault at a 20-year low. But I want to be very clear. If it wasn't, that doesn't mean we're done with America. It doesn't mean we're done with our democracy. It doesn't mean that you set fire to the Constitution, you crap on the flag, you give up on our society. If you do that, then you never really meant it. You were never really one of us. You never shared our values. You're not a patriot. You're not any of that. You were just waiting to be conquered. You were waiting to submit if you're that easily bought off. And it's not even true anyway. So standing up for the values we all supposedly hold should be the easiest thing in the world when even the excuse for getting rid of our system is just pure gaslighting. Anyway, with that said, we've got one more story to talk about with the time we have remaining, so let's jump into this.
I just want everyone here and in the country to understand what our Republican colleagues just did. For the third time this year, Republicans just resorted to the so-called nuclear option in the Senate, weakening the Senate even further and turning this chamber into a conveyor belt for unqualified Trump nominees. But what Republicans have done is chip away at the Senate even more, to give Donald Trump more power and to rubber stamp whomever he wants, whenever he wants them, no questions asked.
I just can't help but get fired up every time I hear that lion speak. Anyway, that's Chuck Schumer, and he's not wrong in what he's saying. It is the Senate once again just saying, hey, all that stuff about like procedure and tradition and the rights of the minority. Yeah, we're in charge now, so screw all that stuff. We're done. We want to use our power, and that's what they're doing. They did trigger a version of the nuclear option yet again, allowing them to speed up the confirmation of Donald Trump's nominees. And so normally you need 60 of 100 senators to agree to vote to move toward passing legislation. By using this nuclear option, the majority party can just use majority rule to change the rules. In this particular case, the vote was 53 to 45 to establish a new rule that allows the Senate to confirm a big block of nominees rather than process each one individually. Republicans say they'll allow their own senators to object to individual nominees in any given block, but the rule will strip away the power of the minority party to do the same thing, because this is not a democracy. This is nothing. This is a game. I mean, they're barely a Senate. They're there as long as Donald Trump doesn't tweet about them or whatever. We're a failed state. Just understand that. I mean, I guess one silver lining is that theoretically now, if the Democrats get back in charge, more power for them if they want to do this. But I just want to point out that, like, yes, if you're in charge and the minority party is blocking everything, that's really annoying. I want everyone to bear in mind that the nominees this year have been the least qualified There were people under Bush that didn't seem qualified. We have Fox News hosts filling incredibly sensitive roles. We have podcasters and grifters, insane people, 22-year-old ex-gardeners in charge of counter-terrorism security. There has never been a better argument for extra scrutiny on nominees when they're putting forward people with no experience or putting forward judges that can't even get the Bar Association to approve their nomination. Chuck Schumer is unfortunately not the guy to be doing this, but somebody should be vetting these people. Jordan, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this change?
This just is another instance of Democratic weakness. And we just watched as they threw up their hands, said, oh, we can't, the rules say we can't do this. We can't eliminate the filibuster. We can't change the rules to pass through popular legislation. Meanwhile, we at home, us all watching it, knew Republicans, if they were in the same circumstance, would. And this is what they're doing. And this is why people gravitate towards the right, because you might not like everything that they do, but you can clearly see they will fight for something and they will do whatever they can to enact their agenda. And then we're just watching as Schumer complains about the parliamentarian or the Senate filibuster rules. They'll just change it. If it gets in their way, they'll change it. They ignored the parliamentarian on Trump's budget bill. They ignored the CBO and the readings. They didn't care. Why are we letting these constraints get in the way of popular policy, if not that the Democrats in power and in leadership specifically don't actually want to do these things? They're beholden to corporate donors and special interests. Those donors and those voices don't want these things to pass because it affects their bottom line. And we pay. We deal with the consequences, not them. They're fine. It's absolutely aggravating, John.
I mean, they're institutionalists, and as a result, the Democrats do find themselves, as Jordan says, in this place where they're complaining about Manchin and Sinema, when they were the key votes. We've got to try to somehow, romance them so they can. But the reality is that when the GOP gets in, you see the ruthlessness with which they pursue everything. There is a brutality to it. The ends justify the means, and you begin to see it, and it's on full display. But as John has pointed out, the incompetence is the cornerstone of this administration. I mean, it's unparalleled in my lifetime, the kind of incompetence we're seeing at the highest levels. And so, of course, you want to get them rubber stamped all at once because you don't want any real examination of who these people are or what incompetence they are. So when this situation meets the kind of brutality of the GOP, then it does just turn into a conveyor belt of utter horror, and that's what's going on right now in the Senate.
Yeah, and it's all predictable. I mean, government always suffers in terms of capability and desire to do anything when Republicans are in charge. This is just the worst version that we've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. And from their point of view, it largely doesn't matter if the government can accomplish literally anything. The people that they're there to represent are the ones who have already won. They just want the government to stay out of their way, to not tax them, to not regulate them. But while it's not an issue for them, it is an issue for regular people. Regular people need a government that actually functions. And so as things fall apart, we're already seeing that, and it's only going to get worse. There has to eventually be a political reckoning that'll come, because even their voters are not going to be able to deny that Donald Trump can keep saying $2 gas all he wants. It's not. He can keep saying that prices are down. Food prices, other prices are up. We just did a segment on TDR earlier today about that. You can lie to them over and over. You can spit in their face over and over, but eventually, I think their bank account is going to tell them the truth. And so they really seem to be bargaining on the right that they can just gerrymander and martial law their way out of the democratic consequences of their constant willful failures. And it's going to be an exciting year to find out if that bargain actually comes
Well, don't undersell it, John. That speaks to the brutality. I mean, that really is part of the plan. It's like, hey, if we can't win on the facts, then we're just going to we'll change the rules in effect. And I really see that as a legitimate scenario and strategy that they're going to pursue. When I say legitimate, I mean it's legitimate from the standpoint of the fact that I think we're going to see it. It's obviously full of illegitimacy.
Yeah. Final word from you, Jordan.
Yeah, Democratic voters, the base right now wants to see fight. You're seeing high levels of energy at these tours, like the Fight the Oligarchy tour. You see people, anything they can latch onto. You're seeing pretty high levels of support for Newsom's effort to temporarily throw out the independent redistricting in California to fight back against Texas. But when you look in Congress and you see Jeffries and Schumer just kind of twiddling their thumbs and doing, wagging their finger, it doesn't inspire confidence. So I keep coming back to, why are these people still in their positions? There are plenty of fighters in the party elected in Congress who could lead in this moment. Neither of them seem especially well equipped to be the leaders that we need right now.
Quickly, just on that point, John, I wanted to say Jordan is so right about this. I look to the governors. I mean, you look at a Pritzker, Shapiro, Newsom. These are all standouts for pushing back, but you don't really see much of it on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, it is maddening to me that Schumer he's just going to be in charge for this entire period, I guess. They're just not going to challenge it. It's insane. But anyway, that's all the time we have for Insanity in the first hour. Thank you, both Mark and Jordan, for being here. I appreciate it. Love talking politics with you guys. But coming up, we have a new panel, which is gonna be here on the other side of this break. Yaz is gonna be in studio taking the reins. We got Michael Shore, we got Maz Jobrani. Should be a lot of fun, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think, is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets, where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. They'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes. with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Hello, welcome to the second hour of the Young Turks. I'm Yasmin Aliyah Khan. Kind of an interesting show today. Cenk is not here, and I'm joined in studio with Michael.
But by the way, you're here.
I am here.
That's
yeah, it
news in and of itself.
It is.
I didn't even notice Cenk wasn't here. I only noticed
Yaz
you
was
were.
here. Yeah, well, I'm sure he's happy about that. So we're also going to be joined by Maz Jobani later on in the show. But for now, let's get right into our first story. We have a Roblox story for you guys. Let's get right to it.
If you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass.
All right, so we obviously have not shown that full video to anybody on our platform. It's not hard though to go online and find that video. It's kind of gone viral. It is a very gruesome video. I personally have not watched it myself. I'm not going to, but it's more difficult to find now, but for the most part, you can find it if you want to. So Alex Mata-Evan, the director of MediaWise at the Poynter Institute, had this to say: "It's unbelievable how some of these videos are still up, and with the way this stuff spreads, it is absolutely impossible to take down or add warnings to all of these horrific videos if you don't have a robust trust and safety program." Wired viewed these videos across TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. Some of the videos appeared organically in feeds or upon first opening the apps. Others were easily surfaced by searching for keyword terms such as Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk shot. On X, some users advised that people turn off autoplay so they wouldn't accidentally view videos of the shooting. But the most surprising platform that it has gone viral on is the gaming platform, the video game platform Roblox. So if you're not familiar with Roblox, I just learned really what Roblox was today. It's a gaming platform where users can create their own games while playing and chatting with other users. So a Roblox spokesperson did tell Fox Business, "Our moderation team started seeing violative content around Charlie Kirk yesterday, and we removed over 100 experiences so so far and are continuing to take action. We encourage anyone to report content or behavior that may not comply with our policies by using our report abuse feature. When users are found in violation of our community standards, we will take swift action to protect the safety and civility of our community. So, according to Takeaway Reality, in Q4 of 2024, the game had 88.9 million daily active users. And the thing that is most concerning is that a large portion of these players are children. And you can see right there, 60% are over 13, but almost 40% are under 13 years old. So with how Roblox is set up though, it's very unlikely that the actual video was shown, the actual video of what happened to Charlie Kirk. It was more likely that there are references and depictions of the assassination that was visible, but either way, it's not appropriate for children to be viewing something like that. So Roblox, you might have heard about them in the news lately. They have faced a lot of backlash for the platform and for how safe it is in general for children, especially 40% of children under the age of 13 to be on there. So past allegations have come out saying that children are vulnerable to sexual predators on the platform, which even led to Congressman Ro Khanna of California to launch a petition urging the gaming giant to do more to protect the children. So last year, Roblox announced new safeguards designed to protect younger users, including restrictions that prevent children under 13 from directly messaging others without parental approval, according to Reuters. The company also said parents and caregivers would gain the ability to remotely oversee their child's account, review friend lists, set spending limits, and manage screen time. So, Michael, like there's a lot going on in this story. A lot has happened in the last few days that has had people within the media especially really maybe reevaluating the way that we spend our time on the internet, the way that we engage with our communities online, and seeing real life repercussions of what can happen whenever things get a little bit too polarized and when we're not careful about the way that we are conducting ourselves online. And like it's very easy for things to get radicalized in a way that maybe that's not the intention, but these platforms, whatever the intention is behind them, the way that they started off, they can be bastardized by people who have really poor intentions. So what are your thoughts so far on this?
Well, I mean, a lot of thoughts on this are just that Roblox is a kid game. I have a son. He played Roblox growing up. He doesn't play it. He might even play it now, but he's too old to be playing it. You're too old to be playing it if you're playing now. But the point is that that's not what is supposed to be impacted by this kind of, gruesome, literally realized, I did see it and I saw it a few times, the gruesome footage of Charlie Kirk's death. And so, but my favorite part is, so you have, Alex Mahadevan from who's at the Poynter Institute, and he's saying that we shouldn't show this, we shouldn't see it, it's horrific, he's right. And then the Wired article goes, we shouldn't show it. Here's how to find it if you want to find it. Search these things. Yeah. So, I mean, the media is also feeding the beast by doing that to a degree. Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, a guy I've actually met and who seemed like a pretty good guy, and it's you're never really prepared for what to do, even if you're moderate in some ways, and the most extreme in your party, representing your party, is taken down in your state. I do have a little bit of sympathy for that situation, but just a little bit. And to equate the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy to someone like Charlie Kirk, I'm not going to use adjectives, but what's in my head. And I'm also, it's tragic and ugly, and this place of violence where we find ourselves now is inexcusable. And I hate what happened. Hate it. I just hate it. Right. But you can't equate it just because it happened to King and Kennedy. To be forgiving to Cox, I would say, okay, it is political violence, and we are a violent country, and political violence is going to happen. When it starts getting to Roblox and it starts getting to kids, and we have no control, like you just said, Yaz. I mean, we need to exercise restraint and control, but we don't do that. We're not a controlled country. We have all the excesses in the world are found in America, and we're all guilty of it. But I in this case, you're not going to stop social media, unfortunately. I wish we could, and that's where this is happening. And to that end, I mean, finding ways to control it being out there for little kids, like Roblox should be doing, is vitally important, because this is, terrorizing.
Yeah. And speaking of, I'm a millennial. I'm a bit of a millennial Luddite, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I am a little bit more apprehensive about technology and the way that it's used. I'm not against technology. Like, I understand that we're living in this modern era, and I understand that that's going to be a big part of our reality going forward, as much as I hate it personally. But at the same time, yesterday was September 11th. We had the anniversary of the attacks on the World Trade Center. And I remember growing up in a very interesting time. The internet was still kind of a new place when I was younger. It was very much the Wild West, and especially after September 11th, there was a lot of us who were on these platforms like LimeWire and Kazaa, and we were downloading videos and songs that we thought we were getting, and then it was a very, very gruesome video. And if you were there, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the kind of videos that we as children all saw, and that was not okay. But as I said, it was the Wild West back then. There was very little, if any, regulation over videos like that. But now we are a little bit more cognizant, I think, of what is on the internet and ways that we could be and should be protecting our children from some of the more sinister things that are out there. So we know.
I was too busy renting VHSs to worry about.
We
stuff.
did that too.
Okay.
But
just so you know.
We were starting to get in.
Bart knows what I'm talking about.
We were sailing the high seas long ago. Okay. I know that's popular now with the kids, but we were doing it back in the day too. So, but. Speaking of, Roblox is taking action now to remove some references of the assassination of Charlie Kirk on its platform. Other social media platforms, though, what are they doing? So researchers tracking the spread of the shooting videos on social media say that major social platforms are falling short in enforcing their own content moderation rules. And the video of Kirk being fatally shot is somehow falling into a policy loophole, threading the needle between allowing graphic content and the category of glorified violence that violates platform rules. And that kind of is also the case for platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and also X. So a spokesperson for Meta said that per the company's violent and graphic content policies, it's applying a marked as sensitive warning label to footage of the Kirk shooting and are age gating it to users 18 and older, and that it does not allow videos to glorify, represent, or support the incident or perpetrator. And X tells users that they may share graphic media if it is properly labeled, not prominently displayed, and is not excessively gory or depicting sexual violence. The platform notes that content that is explicitly threatening, inciting, glorifying, or expressing desire for violence is not allowed. X did not reply to requests for comment or question about whether the Kirk video was considered excessively gory by X's standards. That's kind of crazy though, because anybody who has seen the video will tell you that it was almost the definition of excessively gory. I didn't watch it and I'm not going to, but it's interesting that they're, taking these steps to mark it as sensitive and things like that. But I know a lot of people who just stumbled upon the video. They weren't seeking it out, but they saw it and they weren't happy that that was something that just came across them. So now on TikTok specifically, their terms of service state they do not allow gory, gruesome, disturbing, or extremely violent content. And like Roblox, they are actually taking some action to that end. So the company told CNN that it's removing videos that show close-up views of the shooting and search terms like raw video footage and accidental incident or actual incident footage that were popping up as suggested terms. It is also deploying more measures to prevent people from unexpectedly seeing graphic footage of the incident. So I'm sure that would have been very helpful to people. Michael, I think what's interesting about this is that it's on the internet at all. You know, like the fact that this is on the internet is appalling. You know, like just it never would occur to me, even if I witnessed something like that and happened to have my phone camera on it at the time, I would not put that on the internet.
Right, well, I mean, that people share stuff though, right?
Yeah.
And all it takes is one person taking that video. I guess if I took the video, I'd probably send it to my brother or a friend, to Ben or to Cenk, let's say, and then they would send it to someone and someone would publish. I mean, it gets out there.
It gets around.
And because that's just the sort of human nature of things. But the internet, everything's on the internet. There's nothing that isn't on the internet. So it's not surprising. This was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. Like I've never seen anything like this, but in my life. So it was hard to watch. It was fascinating because people look at this stuff in that way and they can't believe that, I watched it again because I couldn't believe what I saw the first time, and that's the other, but I also think there's an irony here in what they were saying is that they were saying, that I guess we were talking about Meta saying the mark is sensitive. They'll show this, right? They'll allow this to be there as graphic violence or graphic content, but they don't allow videos that glorify or support the incident or perpetrator. So where's the censorship there, right? You're censoring. I'm not saying that person should be glorified, but if you wanted to glorify them in the same way as you want to post this gory and gruesome stuff, the First Amendment says you can go on and glorify that person too. So they're censoring that, but they're not censoring the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
And let's not forget too, like there's a lot of people who have very, very strong feelings about Charlie Kirk and the messages that he was putting out there and how dangerous his messages were to various groups of people. But this is somebody who died, and we're just watching this person die, and who
has kids and has a family, kids, family,
absolutely.
Friends, whatever. I would not want my son to see that happen to me, God forbid, and I don't think that anybody should, be able to see that. But that's me. I also get, if this makes it to the Supreme Court one day, how do you legislate the internet? How do you rule on these sorts of things? It was easy with pornography because there wasn't the internet, right? I mean, when the Supreme Court had to take up pornography, there were ways to control it. This is the Wild West, the internet, and so it's hard to do that.
Yeah, and this isn't even a new problem, when it comes to things like censorship versus, the First Amendment right to free speech and all these different things. There's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of places where certain motives overlap and contradict one another, and we have to work through all these things, and we have to remember that the people who are deciding this type of legislation and who are making these rules and who are deciding what is okay and what isn't, they're not always looking out for the children's best interests or for just people's best interests. Even if you're over 13 years old or over 18 years old, you might not necessarily want to just be scrolling on Reddit and stumble across something so horrific. One of my friends actually texted me on the day. She said, "I think I just watched Charlie Kirk die," and she was not seeking that out at all. And she was like, "I didn't need to see that," you know. And there is a lot of financial motives behind a lot of these platforms. They want things to go viral. They want more users engaged on their platforms. And unfortunately, I think that always takes priority and precedent over things like public safety.
Right,
and public health.
There has to be a boundary. There has to be a place where you stop, right? If you want Taylor Swift getting engaged to be viral, have at it, go do that. But when something like this happens, there has to be a way to rein it in, because people close to him shouldn't see it, and that's a small cadre of people in the whole world. But kids should not be able to see this, and of course they shouldn't be able to play Roblox and see this either. So.
Yeah, and I think going forward, we're going to have a very interesting conversation on a national level as far as who we are as a people. There's going to be a lot of conversations that stem from this incident as far as what's appropriate, who we are, the things that we celebrate, the things that we want to amplify as a society, that type of thing. So we're going to have to see what this means for us as the American people going forward. All right, so we will be right back in a little bit. Hi, welcome back to the social break. Cenk isn't here, so I've got to read all your comments, which is fun for me. So let's see, over on tyt.com, Burrito Bandito said, Yaz in the studio. Yay, she escaped Texas. It is very exciting. I'm very excited to be here in Los Angeles. I have Michael here with me in the studio. I got to hang out with all these people who I usually see through a screen, but they're all here. Like, we're real friends, for once, which is fun. And yeah, I keep telling my husband that I'm not going back to Texas. Now that I'm out, I'm not going back, but we'll see. Let's see. Nerd Ferguson says, we've entered the era of having a shooter ID'd, and all we ask is, who did he vote for? What political side is he on, instead of how did he get a gun, or should he have access to a gun? And yeah, like that's kind of what I guess I was alluding to in the previous story, is we were really gonna have to think a lot about the way that we frame the things that happen to us and by us as a country, the way that we interpret the world around us, the world that we want to help create going forward. And there's going to be a lot of disagreement, but like this is, I mean, I know here at TYT, we've never advocated for any kind of violence or anything like that just because you disagree with somebody. But the politicization of these issues is always going to come up. And it's hard to separate it sometimes, because these figures were so political and because their followers were so political. So there is an inherent politicization within these stories. But as far as how we go forward and as far as how we as people and individuals interpret and analyze and just, think about how we feel about these issues, we need to just, get to some kind of place of common sense again. So Wolf Dragon Donna said, I heard yesterday from the local authorities that they had wanted to release the photos of the suspect much earlier in the day, but they had to wait until Patel flew in later in the afternoon. That's interesting, I hadn't heard that. I think they were talking about it on John's Hour. Purple Orchid said, yay, Yaz, your blouse is beautiful. Did you make it? I did make it my top. How fun, thank you for noticing. Pessimistic Progressive says, that must have been a long commute for Yaz. It was, it took me 3 hours to get here. Also, I was in San Diego before I came here. So it was another 2 hours from San Diego.
That's unbelievable that you made it here in 2 hours from San Diego.
It was, yeah, there was no traffic. We also drove at like midnight.
Okay.
So that was helpful. Nerd Ferguson says, Yaz in studio is kind of like seeing your teacher in the grocery store. There's a level of familiarity, yet it feels so out of place. That I don't know how I feel about that.
But that's great. That's really funny. That's a great analogy.
All right, we'll be right back. Drop it. Welcome back to the Young Turks. I'm Yasmin Aliyah Khan. I'm hosting today in studio. Cenk is out, he's got the day off. And I'm joined with my power panelists. I have Michael Schur with me here in studio. And also we're joined by Maz Jobrani. Maz, how you doing?
Good, how you doing? I didn't know you were in town, so welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry you couldn't be here with us in studio because Michael and I, we're having a great time here. But glad you could join us from wherever you are. So with that, we have a lot more to get to. So we're gonna get right into this next story because another example of how prevalent gun violence is here in this country. A 16-year-old has opened fire at Evergreen High School in Colorado Wednesday, less than an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot in Utah. And the suspect was a student at the high school. His name was Desmond Hawley, who, according to authorities, had been radicalized by an extremist network. So Jackie Kelly is a spokesperson for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and they didn't go into details about what the network was, this extremist network that he was radicalized by, or what it did. But she did say, we want to at least give you that much, maybe, about the mindset for him. So, that can really mean anything. It's not a whole lot of insight. According to the Denver Post, they discovered social media accounts that appeared to be linked to Hawley. And they do show that he had an interest in mass shootings and also that he held anti-Semitic views. According to Kelly, Hawley came to school with a revolver handgun and, quote, quite a bit of ammunition. So Hawley roamed the campus searching for new targets as he shot out windows and lockers covering a huge area of the school. He would fire and reload, fire and reload, fire and reload. This went on and on. So 2 students were injured in the shooting, and as of yesterday afternoon, both are said to still be in critical condition. And as for Hawley, he died later Wednesday night due to self-inflicted injuries after he turned the gun on himself. So Jackie Kelly also went on to say, I have to believe that when you bring a gun to school and you continue to fire and reload, that you are on a mission. We're very, very grateful that there were not more injuries, but saddened that there were any. Of course, all of it is sad, I should say. Since the investigation is still ongoing, it is unclear what the motive was, but law enforcement has obtained warrants for the suspect's phone, home, and locker. It's not yet clear if the shooting was entirely targeted or random, but Kelly noted it could be a bit of both. She was not able to provide any information about how the suspect obtained the handgun or who owned it. And investigators are also working to interview many of the students who witnessed what happened to piece together how the school became the site of the 47th shooting that took place at a school in the United States so far this year, 24 of which were on college campuses and 23 on K-12 school grounds. So additionally, yesterday, multiple HBCUs were put on lockdown after receiving threats that were later deemed to not be credible. And over at UMass in Boston, some of the students had to be evacuated after reports of shots being fired. So Maz, we'll start with you. I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, gun violence is something that our country is talking quite a bit about right now in light of what happened with Charlie Kirk, but also the fact that there was a school shooting that same exact day, which really didn't get a whole lot of coverage. We're trying to talk about it here now on this show. I almost don't know what to say. Like, where do we go from here? It's kind of the same rigmarole that we go through every time. But in light of what happened with Charlie Kirk, it feels as though we're in different territory. Although that being said, I don't think that means necessarily that we're actually going to be moving towards more gun control or anything like that. So what are your thoughts, Maz?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head there. They're not going to move towards more gun control. I mean, we all, when Sandy Hook happened, we all thought, okay, that's it. They're going to do something, and they didn't do anything. And then it just kept going and going. Then you have, the church, the synagogue in Pittsburgh. You have the El Paso Walmart. You have the Uvalde. It goes on and on and on, and they don't do anything. You have Las Vegas. They don't do anything, and they just keep saying it's not the guns. It's not the guns. It's everything else but the guns. And, when I was younger, we didn't have people bringing guns to school. You had a slingshot. So, somebody might hit somebody with a rock or something. But this is just ridiculous. And it's just completely out of control how you keep getting people like your Nancy Maces or your other members of Congress who keep trying to blame ideologies. They keep trying to blame some kind of wokeism or something. Even Donald Trump's speech talking about the liberal left, the left wing, blaming the left wing about this. It's just incomprehensible. And meanwhile, they are Donald Trump has lifted the protection of former I think Kamala Harris and others. And he threatens them, and he talks about like shooting Liz Cheney, and he talks about all kinds of stuff. He made fun of Paul Pelosi when he got hit with that hammer. So it's the unfortunate thing is that we could take clips of us talking about gun violence from the most previous, and then the most previous, and then they just keep going backwards, and just keep running those in these shows. and it would be the same conversation we're having. Do something about it, and they're not doing anything about it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when Littleton, Colorado happened, and everybody thought, oh, this is going to change the conversation on guns in America. That was 1999, and since then, everything that Maz just talked about happened, right? I mean, you have from Newtown to Uvalde and everything in between, and those numbers that you threw at us, yes, those are incomprehensible. Forget K through 12; it just happens all the time. We see it all the time. This kid from Colorado, so it makes you think the same thing, that you can't help but think about Littleton. Evergreen, Colorado, actually, I'm really going to age myself now. That's where John Hinckley was from, and that's where the national media converged on Evergreen, Colorado, because he shot at Ronald Reagan and killed, I guess didn't really injured terribly James Brady and the others there. So it's an epidemic. We are a violent country, and we're a violent country with guns everywhere. Utah Valley University, they had open carry, right? So anybody could have had weapons on them, on that student body. This is a gun-obsessed, gun-crazed country. And people can talk about mental illness. There's mental illness everywhere in the world, but there aren't the liberal gun laws that we have in this country everywhere in the world, and that's why you're seeing what we're seeing, and there's no question about it. And will something happen about it? Not until people are not afraid of the gun lobby. And even with the weakened NRA, you still have people afraid, Democrats, I shouldn't say people, Democrats afraid to say in purple states or to take the risk in red states and say we've got to do something about guns, because the polling on guns shows that any kind of restriction is actually amenable to most of the gun-toting part of this country. And yet they're afraid to do it. They're afraid to be labeled soft on crime. We'll get to that a little later, but it's a big, big problem, and it didn't start obviously yesterday. It didn't end in Evergreen, Colorado yesterday, and it's really devastating and disappointing to see where we are. And there's been progress, but very, very little.
Very, very little. And that's an excellent point that you brought up, Michael, because as you guys know, most of the time I'm in Texas, and Texas, everybody has this idea that we're all cowboys and cowgirls out there, and we just want to do whatever we want. And that is true to an extent. There are a lot of gun owners in Texas, right? It's kind of what we're known for. But even in Texas, or maybe especially in Texas, maybe
barbecue,
because
by the way, barbecue.
We have great barbecue in Texas. Thank you. But even in Texas, maybe because we have so many gun owners in Texas, and because it is such a big part of our culture, we have a lot of Democrats own guns in Texas, by the way, so this isn't necessarily a left-right thing. But on both sides of the political aisle in Texas, there's overwhelming support for some kind of gun control, right? All Texans were hurting whenever the shooting happened at Uvalde, and we watched our governor do nothing about it and pretty much say that he was going to do nothing about it. We've heard things from our Senator Ted Cruz when he was asked a long time ago about what he was going to do about gun violence. He said he celebrated thoughts and prayers, and which was his way of saying, I'm not going to do anything about it, and thoughts and prayers should be enough for you people. And it just isn't, The gun violence conversation is transforming now in light of what happened to Charlie Kirk. There is a conversation around political violence as well that is starting to happen. And the fact that it's starting to happen is also very telling, right? Because this is not the first incident of political violence this country has seen. We have been dealing with political violence for a long, long time, especially recently, right? We've seen what's been happening with these ICE agents who are putting people into the backs of trucks and just carting them away to who knows where. We have seen what's been going on at Alligator Alcatraz. We see what's going on overseas in Gaza. We know that's an attack, a genocide that's being funded with our own tax dollars, right? All of this is happening. We see that transgender people are being demonized. We see that the SCOTUS has just said that they can racially profile people and in their persecution of them. So political violence has been happening for a long time to various marginal
when
groups.
People say, when people come out, this is not who we are. This is absolutely who we are. Mm-hmm. This is who we are. Until we change it, this is who we are. So going off of what you're just saying, it's happening. It's happening. Political violence is not new. It didn't start yesterday. This is who we are.
It is.
And interestingly, and also, they keep talking about mental health. And I think the Department of Education just cut $1 billion that had been earmarked for mental health. So they're not even serious about that. Their solution is put a cop at the schools. That'll solve it. A good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun. Tell the people of Uvalde that.
Yeah, and I don't know where all these good guys with guns are, And even that never really made a whole lot of sense to me either, because like how quick are these good guys with the draw? Like after someone gets shot, there's no time. Like they have to be very, very vigilant all the time to prevent this violence. And at the end of the day, we have not seen a good guy with a gun stop a bad guy with a gun. I think it happened maybe one time that I can think of where it actually did happen. And that is nothing compared to how many times we have seen so much violence and so much death from gun violence in this country. So,
well, Leslie Nielsen as Frank Drebin, good guy with a gun, stopped a lot of bad guys with guns.
Leslie Nielsen,
just saying, yeah.
That is a reference.
It's a Naked Gun reference, yeah.
Yeah, it is. All right, we're gonna take a break and get on to our next story. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the social break. We're gonna read some of your comments. Let's see. Okay, let's see what's going on over on Twitch. Microgram says nothing at all will change. Trump might try banning guns from leftists based on their social media posts or something stupid like that, but that's it. That's interesting. That would be interesting because they think that leftists don't have guns. That's not true. A lot of leftists have guns. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that there is some kind of like political divide. We're already starting to see the beginnings of that happen in the zeitgeist. Octosquiddy says engagement drives engagement. The algorithm did exactly what it was written to do. Whenever everything is driven by an algorithm, when engagement is how these companies make money by showing ads and just keeping people on their platforms for longer and longer, then this is how we end up where we are. And I think that's why I was trying to make the point that at the end of the day, these companies that are supposed to be regulating certain things to keep people safe and keep children safe, they're businesses and all they care about is their bottom line. And we know that that's all that they care about because they have proven that to us time and time again. And Mapwa says, get money out of politics, gun laws will come. Wouldn't that be nice? I can't wait to see, for when that actually happens. Let's see. Mr. In Between says, Maz, loved seeing you on King of the Hill. Great stuff. That's cool. I didn't know he was on King of the Hill. So.
Yeah, I got a little couple of characters in there on the premiere of their new Hulu series. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We've got one more story for you before we go to our bonus episode, so let's get right into it.
The reality is that the economic bricks, hiring, inflation, how people feel, are piling up on the wrong side of the scale.
Oh, I think they're piling up on the right side, actually.
Wait, you want inflation in August ticking up to 4.3%, the highest since 21? Manufacturing activity shrank in August, 6 months running, unemployed workers exceeding job openings. If Biden had numbers like that, you'd be on Fox saying, what's going on?
All right, that was Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, and he was there trying to convince Americans that Trump's economy is not actually that bad. In fact, it's not even really Trump's economy, and that is one heck of a hot take. And this can be a really big problem for the Republicans as we head into the midterms. Anytime there is a bad economy, it reflects very poorly on the president. So now they're trying to separate Trump from the poor economy that he very much and very directly, I think, helped to create and deliberately helped to create. So first, let's hear how Lutnick is trying to justify these just very, very terrible economic indicators. Let's watch.
If Biden had numbers like that, you'd be on Fox saying, what's going on?
So the economy that Donald Trump owns starts at the end of this year. You can't get, well, wait.
January 20th,
you can't build factories and get permits and begin in an hour. You just can't. And the scale by which these companies are committed to building factories in America is unprecedented. So the jobs are coming, the factories are coming. We know the cavalry is coming. You know it. You can hear the thunder of the hooves coming.
All right, well, the point that he's trying to make might not actually be the worst point in the world, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But it was actually contradicted by Lutnick himself just a few months ago when he posted this on X back in July. He said GDP just surged to 3% and the Trump economy has officially arrived. Biden's first quarter is behind us and growth is already accelerating. President Trump's tariff policies have drawn historic investments and opened up global markets for US businesses. Congratulations, America, 3% today, and we're just getting started. Okay.
I love that. It hasn't started yet, but except it started.
It started in July, but it not technically till the end of the year.
This is not Trump's economy. So that good stuff,
it's a really interesting take. And like the Trump economy has resulted in inflation that's been rising now for its fourth consecutive month, I'm sorry. And it rose 0.4% in August, putting the annual inflation rate at 2.9%, which is the highest it has been since Trump was inaugurated in January. And also grocery and fuel prices, they shot higher in August after falling the month before. Food at home prices rose 0.6%, and that is the highest monthly jump in nearly 3 years. And gas prices climbed by 1.9% after falling 2.2% the month before. And the latest consumer price index provided further evidence that some costs from President Donald Trump's policies, such as sweeping immigration reform and steep tariffs, are slowly being passed along to consumers. And that's from economist Dean Baker, who's a co-founder of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. So on top of all of this, jobless claims are the highest that they have been in years. The unemployment rate has moved slightly higher in August, and new data on Thursday showed one of the biggest weekly increases in jobless claims seen in more than a year. So the first time filings for unemployment insurance, considered a proxy for layoffs, jumped by 27,000 to 263,000 for the week ending September 6th. That is the highest level seen since late October of 2021. But you guys, don't worry, because Howard Lutnick says the jobs, they're coming. They're coming just, right around the time when Trump's
you can hear that cavalry.
You can hear them. So let's see what he had to say about the jobs that are incoming.
So now everybody knows their tariff, right? So now you're going to see factories getting built in America at a scale that you have never seen before. Okay, more than $10 trillion of factory build coming. All right, and so there's huge amount of construction jobs. So I would say the first quarter of next year will be the best quarter of construction jobs this country's ever seen. And that's going to roll all the way through 26. So I think you're going to see GDP growth next year over 4%.
You do, 4%. 10 trillion over what period of time, Secretary?
Mr. Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States during his term.
Okay, I guess we're all construction workers now, or we're about to be. So in the meantime, real hourly earnings only gained 0.7% in August, and that is the lowest gain in over a year. So, people's money is just not going as far as it used to go. And, the point about, the sweeping immigration reforms and the steep tariffs and all of this compounding upon itself, nothing exists within a vacuum. And those are very much Trump's policies. So whatever is happening now is a direct result of the things that he has implemented since he has been in office. And one thing that's interesting about Trump is that he brags all the time about how much his administration has been able to get done in such little time, right? How long has he been in office? Not even a year yet, and he has transformed this country in ways that personally I'm not very happy about. So
have you not seen the Rose Garden? I mean,
horrendous. Like it hurts my heart, Like I'm already always fighting about people cutting down trees and paving over green. And I hate it. So anyway, Maz, let's go to you. What are your thoughts on all of this? And also talk a little bit about, in the past, this is a very predictable thing that we see happen, is that, whatever the economy is doing, the people blame it on the president. Even though I think Howard Lutnick's earlier point that he was trying to make is that, there is a lag effect sometimes, right? One president will often have to clean up the economy of another president's policies, or one president will do something that will, maybe you won't feel the effects of it until later. But at the same time, what we're seeing is very, very troubling trends. And again, as I said, they are a direct and immediate response to the policies that Trump has implemented. And also, are you about to quit comedy and become a construction worker?
I can hear the cavalry coming. They're coming. These people, the whole administration works under the Roy Cohn theory of just lie until somebody starts believing it. And that's what they do. They just, twist and turn and change the goalposts. Let's not forget, before Donald Trump won the presidency in 2024, there was a moment when the stock market jumped up, and he took credit. He goes, the stock market went up today because people know I'm gonna win the election. Mm-hmm. So when he wasn't president, he took credit for the economy getting better. And now that he's president, he doesn't wanna take credit for the mess that he's made. I sometimes play this game, and I think we all should from time to time. I ask myself, what would have happened if Kamala had won, and where would we be right now? And where we'd be is we would have the January 6th criminals who stormed the Capitol would still be in prison. Donald Trump would be going through his trials right now. Our economy would be much better. All he had to do, this is how bad of a businessman he is. All he had to do was do nothing. Just don't do anything. Just work on lowering the prices, work on lowering inflation, but don't do this tariff thing. And this tariff thing is just, I mean, the whole reason they did it was to be able to say, look, we got money that's gonna come in, and therefore you can go ahead and give us our tax break, the billionaire tax break. And then the other thing that's very, very ironic is that this guy, he fired half of the government workforce. He deported everybody else who's working. He raised tariffs so companies don't know what to do. Can they hire, can they not hire? And then he's surprised when the job numbers aren't good. You got rid of all the people working. So what do you expect? And Howard Lutnick talking about all these construction jobs coming. I got news for you, Howard. All the people that were doing the construction work are not here anymore. They deported them. So maybe Donald Trump will send the National Guard in to build these new companies, these new factories, the same way they sent the National Guard to DC to pick up trash.
And I'm sure they'll be thrilled about that. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, and not to mention, you know, that when you look at the way that Trump is painting this and Lutnick is painting this, and they're looking at numbers and ignoring them. First they looked at them, then they fired the person who gave them those numbers. Now they're looking at the numbers and saying, those numbers aren't real. We have to wait and see the real numbers. And in fact, what you said is true, is that economies do lag. But there's nothing to indicate that this economy is turning because it's so haphazard. And look, I was in, I think, 24 states last election in 24, traveling around for this place and others, talking to voters, and all voters wanted to hear was that all they wanted to talk about was how high gas prices were and blame it on Biden, and how high it was, how high egg prices were and blame it on Biden. You know, I can't believe that you would blame egg prices directly on the president, but that's presidential politics, so I get it. None of that has changed, right? So what are you seeing right now? You're seeing the president send the military or threaten to send the military into cities and states around the country because the calculus right now is that crime is going to be the issue that they're going to be able to win on because this economy won't be ready for a 2026 election. That's the way I read it, sort of analyzing the politics of it. So I see all this energy going to policing and crime and being the party that's tough on crime when the president is not on the ballot, and he is a force when he's on the ballot. But even though the president is quote unquote on the ballot in the off-year election, he's not really on the ballot. And this president has proven that people don't come out unless he is on the ballot. He has a following and a very, very riled up, passionate group of people that support him in MAGA, but they don't come out for midterms. They're new to the game and they don't come out as much for midterms. At least that's what we saw last time. In order to get people out, in order to get independent voters, you have to say that crime is on the rise and we're the only people fighting it. And that's ignoring the economy. And the economy is what got them there. And you ignore it at your own peril when you're running for office. So I think it's a very fascinating, just stepping away from the ridiculousness of the cavalry. I think it's a fascinating political theater to watch how the administration is focusing only on crime now and saying, oh, this will get a little bit better later on. When in fact, the reason they're sitting there is because they were able to get people to vote for them because of the economy. And independent voters are coming away from that message right now. And they're the ones that care about the economy.
Absolutely, and it's good that you brought up the independent voters because they are the ones who oftentimes will swing elections one way or the other because, you know, Democrats are gonna vote Democrat, Republicans are gonna vote Republican. Even if they don't love Trump, they're still not gonna vote for a Democrat. But the independents, that is where you can kind of win some people over typically. I'm not saying people can't be won over from one side to the other, but typically you make a lot of progress with the independents, and they are not happy right now with the state of the economy or with a lot of Trump's policies. And I know we've talked about that on the show previously. But it is interesting because, you know, whenever this is a democracy and we have terms, we have major elections every 2 to 4 years, and what ends up happening inevitably, you know, whether this is by design or just, you know, by nature of the system that we did design, we're gonna have issues that are specific to drive voters to the polling booths. And, you know, Trump and Republicans, they really seem to have understood that immigration is something that brings their voters out to the polls, and also crime and policing people who they think are bad people, right? They want to feel protected, they want to feel safe, and Trump has told them, I will keep you safe and I will, you know, take care of all these immigrants who shouldn't be here in the first place. And also, by the way, those two issues are overlapped because the immigrants are the criminals, and you're welcome. I'm taking care of all of that for you. But we do know, as Michael, I think, mentioned, a lot of people voted for Trump in the last election because the egg prices were too high. They said as much, right? They said the gas is too high, the egg prices are too high, I can't afford things whenever I go to the grocery store. I'm feeling it personally in my own pocketbook, in my own wallet, and I don't like that. And also, I'm not making any more money than I was before. Also, finding a job is so much more difficult before. We have so many layoffs happening in so many different industries, right? It's not isolated in one particular industry that we can just study that. This is something that is coming very much from the top. And it's almost like a cultural issue that we're seeing because we are going through a transition as a culture. You know, we have AI that is threatening so many jobs. We have Doge that laid off so many people and did not create those new jobs that we kind of thought were gonna happen. So, you know, we're in for a world of change, and I think it will be volatile just because change is always a little bit volatile, even if you are, you know, as prepared for it as you can be. So, Maz, any final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah, you know, you both made a good point about this is a play for the midterms, and let's not forget that they're redistricting to win the midterms as well. They're saying we will tell you who the winner is going to be because they know that their policies are horrible. Their policies are crap across the line, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's the economic policy. They have really poo-pooed on this country. And with that, I say happy weekend.
Thank you. And with that, we're gonna be right back. If you're joining us in the bonus episode, we've got some more stories for you. We're gonna be talking about some Bolsonaro stuff going on down in Brazil, and also ICE is getting new cars and they're getting blinged out and you're paying for it.